Hi everybody and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest is, I think, the most returning guest to the channel. It's Barry Wall, who's the founder of the Winning Mindset, the Warrior Teacher Program. That's something you need to check out. All the links will be in the description of this video. It's a fantastic course. You need to definitely check it out if you like what we're talking about today. So first of all, welcome Barry back onto the show. I think it's your maybe fourth time.
I think we must be getting there. I think by the end of 2025, we'll have achieved double figures, I'm sure.
Thank you for coming on. The reason why I want to talk to you today is obviously we've had a general election now. Labour won like everybody thought. I'm still ambivalent at the moment about if Labour is going to be the disaster we all think they're going to be. And two things happened last week, or the beginning of this week, I should say. The first thing is Wes Streeting has said they're going to implement the CAS report, and at the same time they've also said they're going to push along the banning of conversion therapy. They're two different sides of the idea of what we thought Labour was going to do. What's your take on all this?
Well, it's a mess, frankly. Now, Wes Streeting is doing some great work, and the guy's heart is obviously in the right place, and he's taking an evidentiary approach to the banning of puberty blockers, much to the chagrin of every screaming trans rights activist and lunatic from here to Calcutta. He's being criticised globally. He's being criticised for doing what CAS recommended that we should do, which is to stop this irreversible nonsense and this dangerous treatment being foisted upon gender confused children. And at the same time, they're talking about blocking conversion therapy for sexuality and gender identity on the basis that there is an epidemic of this going on, which quite frankly isn't true. Now, you know as well as I do, I tend to keep a bit of an eye on this, to say the least. I have not met in a very long time anybody who would say that they had been a victim of conversion therapy for sexual orientation. It simply doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist is because it's already covered by existing laws around assault, harassment. Also, we've already got a framework that if a young gay person finds themselves suddenly in some terrible exorcism or whatever it may be, which is, or the real form of it, which was the injection with drugs and the being made to vomit while watching gay porn. It was all sorts of terrible stuff that was done in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Doesn't exist. Now, that's a wholly different concept whatsoever to what they're talking about when they say that they want to ban conversion therapy for gender identity, because gender identity does not exist. It is a fantasy in the minds of people who think that for some reason God gets it wrong occasionally and pours the wrong soul, or the right soul, but into the wrong body. It's the most peculiar concept that they're born in the wrong body. When I usually say is, well, if that's the case, where's the other one? So you can't, how do you ban something that we know is a mental illness on one side? Because they're saying, we need hormones, we need surgery, we need all this, we need all that, because this person is supposed to be able to change themselves into their authentic self. Well, how can you say that that's something that's not a mental illness when somebody will not accept the fact of their own sex body? And certainly you're saying to children that they're born in the wrong body is an evil, wicked thing to do. And then say, well, actually, if a therapist says to you, yeah, this is nonsense, and you need to start thinking about what you're doing, that therapist is then guilty of conversion therapy. Or the parent that says, no, you're not, love, could be guilty of conversion therapy. It's a disaster. And I don't know how they're going to get around the contradictions. And I do wish they'd stop force teaming gays and lesbians with the LGBTQ plus political cult movement, because they're not the same thing. Most gay people I know don't want to be part of it at all, because it is a hard left ideological framework that is quite happy to mutilate, sterilize, and experiment on children. And that's is unconscionable, because actually trans is gay conversion therapy, because 90% of the people that end up in these gender abattoirs are same-sex attracted.
Let's jump back to conversion therapy. So you're perfectly correct. When we think of conversion therapy, we think about parents getting their 12-year-old son who says he's gay into a room with bamboo sticks and beating the crap out of him until he says, I'm not gay anymore, mummy and daddy. That's assault. That can be classed as false imprisonment. That can be classed as torture, we've already got legislation for that. What the far left are now including under conversion therapy are things like, if I say, and you're obviously, well, I know you're a gay man because we're actually friends. If I said to you, do you know what, Barry? It is a sin being gay, and I'm going to pray for you. That some of the far left want to include under conversion therapy. That someone's not allowed to pray for somebody else. It also goes to the extent that if you suddenly decide tomorrow, do you know what? You say to yourself, do you know what, Barry? I'm sick of being gay. I don't want to be gay anymore. I'm going to try to find some help so I can be straight. That no one can help you because that would be conversion therapy. So it's gone to the length of removing people's personal responsibility, personal choice, and their own religious beliefs, and it's going to, again, and this is what the far left always do, authoritarianism. You will do what we say or else. And now they're using legislation along these lines. But you're right, no one is being tortured anymore to be the right person. It's all illegal. This is the minutiae of the I'll pray for you. I'm not going to say you're a boy in a girl's body. Well, how do I say that if it's now against the law to say it? And it's not at the moment, but if they bring this sort of legislation in, it may be.
Well, I think this is the pickle they're going to get in. I mean, you know, it's people who are gay are gay. That's it. I mean, the conversion of trying to convert lesbians years ago and talking about raping the gay out of them. This is the kind of language that died. I mean, but we see it occasionally now, but it's incredibly rare in comparison to what it was like when you and I were young. But incredibly rare. So this idea doesn't even exist, and you can hit me with bamboo sticks all you like. It isn't going to change the simple fact that I'm attracted to men. Now, when it comes to gender identity, that's a different thing because gender identity and being trans is a choice. Now, the point is that they say, "Oh, I'm trans, therefore, or I'm non-binary." If you put in law that you can't challenge that, essentially what you're doing is prescribing a state religion. Because when you get into court, here's the difficult bit, right? So I say, if I'm a therapist and I say to a confused young man, listen, mate, you believe a load of cobblers, and which a therapist wouldn't say that, but you get my drift. You believe a load of cobblers. Actually, none of this is true, and it's all rubbish. And he goes to the police and says, Barry's tried to convert me from being trans to being cis, which is all their language. I then end up in court, and the judge says to me, did you do this? And I say, and he said, why? But you tried to change his gender identity. And I say, well, I don't believe in gender identity. And then he says to me, well, that doesn't matter. You have to believe in gender identity, so I can prosecute you for conversion therapy. That's a state religion. You put this in law, and we've got a state religion that's based around this ridiculous notion of a gender identity or a trans identity, when you know, and I know, it's confused kids and LARPing men pretending to be something they're not for sexual kicks, or women pretending to be gay men. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. So we do have that. It's legally nuts. So I genuinely do not know how they will get past this. They tried to do it in Ireland and they've had to stop. They tried to do it in Scotland, they've had to stop. It's an unnecessary piece of legislation looking for a problem that doesn't exist to fix something that ain't there. That's how I see it.
So let's get back to Labour. So Labour are doing well on the CAS reports. My feeling is they are still keeping the conversion therapy ban. It may never see the statute books, but they're throwing red meat to their own far left lunatics to try to keep it in place. It's already kicking off in the Labour Party with them implementing the CAS review. They're trying to balance being a sensible socialist government with the far left lunatics who are in their party. And that's going to be a hell of a balance. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's going to, it'll take a lot of work. My feeling is they know this and they're just sending the right signal to try to keep the far left under control as much as they possibly can, which won't be that much. It's already kicking off.
Well, I'm hearing exactly the same thing from friends within the Labour Party, that there is a civil war already emerging. I'll be amazed if they make 5 years at this rate. They're starting to look like a mess to begin with. But we have to remember, they won nothing. The Tories lost.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They don't have the support of the country, and they think they do. I think Keir Starmer is completely out of touch with the average person, and I think this is just one example of it. The problem is going to be, from their perspective, if they're throwing red meat to these lunatics, then it won't be enough, because you know, and I know because of past history, that it never is enough. They will never give up. So they can't appease these people, and I don't understand why they can't learn from the Tory government that you can't appease these people. They literally are a damage to our society and have to be dealt so as I mean, I think it's a prevent issue. We've discussed this before. I think it's a prevent issue. Prevent issue. So they are stuck between a rock and a hard place, but they're implementing casts. However, what they're not doing and what they should be doing with real fervor is banning social transition in schools, removing gender identity ideology from the education system, along with every other grievance study and critical social justice nonsense that's being practiced in schools. And they're not saying anything about what they're going to do for people who are over 18, who are having these damaging operations that make them NHS patients for the rest of their life, when none of this should be available to anyone. So I think that they're trying to deal with the thing with children, because that's absolutely vital that we safeguard children. We seem to have forgotten what safeguarding is. Oh, it's okay. He's just a 50-year-old man with his nuts out in a changing room with a 12-year-old girl. We've lost the plot. I mean, we've gone completely mad. So they're trying to deal with that. Well, what are they going to do about the rest of that? Because you can pass any bill you want. You can stop puberty blockers. If they're in school still going, okay, John, you're Jane from now on, then they're asking everybody else to take part in this delusion. They're asking children to lie. It is bringing the whole education system into disrepute. And they've not mentioned this at all, or the fact that the operations are unnecessary, that there is no reason whatsoever to alter the body for a mental illness. And I don't understand why, as a society, we're still playing along with it.
Let me step into the shoes of the senior leadership team now in the Labour government and say to you, we get all that, Barry. Pardon me. We get all that, Barry, but it's baby steps. We've now openly admitted we're for the CAS review. We're going to implement the CAS review. We have to do baby steps for this. Otherwise, the whole government is going to fall apart, because most of our supporters, most of our councillors, and a big chunk of our Labour MPs all believe in this, and we only can do a baby step at a time.
Well, I would say that's nonsense. You know, I mean, have the fight and let the heavens fall. Stop messing about, because this, fine, fall apart. I don't care. Something else will come in its place, and let's make sure that something else that comes in your place also fights this to the death. This is not something that you should pussyfoot around. This is a dangerous, anti-Western, anti-human, anti-science ideology that has infiltrated every part of our culture. And I think it's. People say, well, actually, it's only a small thing. It doesn't really matter. Oh, it matters to women. Let me tell you that for a start. It matters to gay men who've got these women thinking they're men, you know, messing around on the gay scene and bothering them and screaming transphobia when gay men won't sleep with women. Well, go away, right? So, but it's just one part. This is the problem. It's one part of it, isn't it, Nick? You know that, and I know it. Because once you've got gender ideology, you've got queer theory, you've got critical environmentalism, critical fact studies, queering this, queering that. They need to deal with the whole damn thing. And I understand that they're going, it's baby steps, because they want to be able to stay in power. But it's not that many people causing these problems. It's only a few. It's only a few. And I think that they should deal with those few directly. And there's been some stuff that's come out of some of the Labour MPs' mouths. And Starmer should go, okay, you're done. You're out of the party. Boom, goodbye. Criticising Cass. Dr. Hilary Cass, one of the finest paediatricians in the country, who has now been given a place in the House of Lords. That was a good move by the Tories, by the way. Now been given a place in the House of Lords, who has written one of the most comprehensive studies and systematic reviews of anything ever. And you Labour MPs go, she don't know what she's doing. It's absolutely atrocious that they imagine they're in any way qualified to do that. So I don't take that as an excuse. If they do what is politically expedient and we end up with gender identity ideology in law, it's game over anyway. It takes us 100 years to get it out. That's the problem, is if we allow this cult belief system to be fixed in our law in any way whatsoever, then we're in real trouble all round.
We are. Before we go, let me ask you one final question. What else should we be looking at with this Labour government and be wary of? Is there anything else coming down the pipeline?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. He's just recruited a woman whose name escapes me, who thinks that there should only ever be £125,000 gifted from parents to children in terms of inheritance money, and anything over that should go to the state. She's just become part of his fiscal centre. So that's something to worry about. Secondly, I think he's going to come after the middle classes with a vengeance. particularly people that have got second homes or are renting those homes. And thirdly, he sent David Lammy over to Europe almost immediately, and said, go and have a chat with Europe about cybersecurity. Well, that's code for censorship and hate speech laws. So they're coming closer to Europe in order to put in place these hate speech laws that will have a serious impact, because censorship shouldn't exist in my book. It will have a serious impact. At the same time as Elon Musk is going to take them to court because they tried to strike a secret deal with him in order to silence people on X. It's absolutely astonishing that he's in bed with this kind of idea. And then Ed Miliband's going to put up wind farms all over the country in pursuit of this ridiculous net zero rubbish, while India builds one coal fire power center every week. It's absolutely deranged, but it's okay because it's all right because Tarquin's putting his Coke can in the right bin and his carton of milk in the right bin. We are living in an insane world where virtue signaling is more important than reality, and Labour are not going to do anything about that but make it worse. One of Starmer's first phone calls was to Trudeau. Did you know that? And Trudeau is known as he's absolutely insane. My Canadian warrior teachers tell me the man is off the clock insane, absolutely mental. And then you've got what's happened in California, which compounds things, where they've now taken practically all rights from parents altogether. And a child can run away at 12 and the state will house them. This is the left going, no, this is the left. The idea of actually the state is the parent. The state's going to look after you. There's no personal responsibility. And I see no evidence whatsoever from Starmer and his cronies that he's going to do anything but reinforce the idea of the state as parent, rather than the idea of us as individuals who don't need the parent state. In fact, it should be pared back considerably. But I'll wait and see.
Talking about parents' rights, nearly every mass abuse and sexual abuse of children in this country and throughout the world has been instigated by the state. It was the state's involvement that allowed that abuse to happen. We look at the grooming gang scandal. Most of those kids are in care. Look at the church. That's because the church was taking over parental responsibility. We have parents there to protect children because they're biologically and emotionally connected to that child. Parents will put their lives in danger and lose their lives to protect their children. The state would never do that. That's why we have parents. That's why we need two parents in case one of the parents is a poor parent.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you that we know what the model is that works the best. It's not to say that that model is the only model that we should have, but we know the one that works the best, and that's mum and dad and with the kids. We know that. I'm not saying that there aren't people who are bad, because there bloody well are parents who are bad. But and also you could have parents, two mums, two dads, and they're good or bad. This is not about that. This is about what happens with children when the state allows parents to eschew their responsibility. So the state says, that's all right, I've got it, I've got you covered, I've got it all. Well, that makes people go, oh, so I'll just lay about then. Look at Cuba. Look at somewhere like Cuba where people just sit about all day because there's nothing to do. Because it's
Let's look at this country where we have parents now who don't feed their children and expect the school to feed them even during school holidays.
right. Well, this infuriates me. It absolutely infuriates me. Now, there are some parents who are struggling greatly financially because we've got an insane taxation system that is. The taxes are so high that people can't even get the basics for their children. That exists. But on the other hand, we also have parents who are irresponsible in relationship to looking after their children. And Labour's answer is, well, we'll give everybody free school meals. No, no, no. I'm not paying for free school meals for somebody that's earning 70 grand a year. It's simple as it's all this stuff. Now, the other one is the two child thing on the benefit. There's yeah, the two right. So there's a wonderful woman who's done extraordinary work on gender identity ideology and getting this crap out of school called Miriam Cates, right? Now I've got a lot of time for Miriam, and now Miriam is a woman of faith. Now she believes deeply in extending that. I don't. I don't extend it. Put the basic rate of tax level up. Let's put that up so everybody gets more money at the bottom, and let's stop pretending that somebody who's earning 150 grand a year between two of them needs us to pay them £40 a week for each child they have. It has to stop. We've got to stop this blanket nonsense, because now that we've got the technology, it's easy to do. This idea that we used to do it years ago, it used to take ages to have paperwork. I just think we need to see a huge rise in where you start paying taxes. I think we need to see an alleviation of the tax burden on the. It's just huge. Our tax burden is massive. It's absolutely insane, and that needs to change dramatically. And the only way that can change dramatically is by shrinking the state. The state needs to be shrunk incredibly. The tax system needs to be simplified. It needs to be a situation whereby your average person can afford to feed their children, can afford to rent somewhere to live, and doesn't have to worry about what the bill is going to be when it arrives on the doorstep. Starmer seems to think by going, we're going to build our public sector electricity company. Well, good luck with that, because getting hold of the stuff to do it isn't going to be any cheaper than it is for the private sector. And yet here he is rolling in with the state, who we know can't run a damn thing. It always ends up in a pickle. Look at what's going on with the DWP and HMRC now. They're a mess. So I frankly don't see how the larger state that Starmer is talking about is going to have anything but a detrimental effect on the British people and on the UK life altogether. He's also putting in these strange councils. Have you seen about this? So in each region, there's going to be a board of people that won't report directly to Parliament and weren't voted in by the people. It's pure hard.
I've not, I didn't know he's talked about it, but I've heard this before. These are people's assemblies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what the hell is that about?
It's a communist idea.
Of course it is. It's pure communism. What people don't get, and I mean, I looked into this after I read an article by Peter Hitchens, who I think I was a great fan of his brother. And I didn't become interested in what he had to say until I saw him, funny enough, debating his brother. And then I was like, actually, Peter's worth listening. They're both smart, you know? And Peter has already said, and I think he's absolutely right in this, that Starmer is left of Corbyn. He's absolutely left of Corbyn. Well, if they want to go ahead with that, feel free. Because it's not like we haven't got the record of the past 150 years where this has failed every single time, and where it has led to hunger, death, state enforced or state authoritarianism that will force you to do what the state wants you to do. But they want their utopia, and they'll do anything to get it, Nick. That's the way it works for the left.
And well, I agree with you. I don't think Labour's going to last 5 years. I think it'll implode a lot sooner than that. And the only benefit out of that for me will be it will teach the generations under me and you that socialism doesn't work. Me and you remember the 70s. We remember nothing working. We remember no electricity in our homes. We remember trains never working, never on time. We remember 3 month wait to get a phone fitted in your house. We remember all that, but since then, the newer generations just believe in utopia. We've seen socialism work. We were the sick man of Europe in the 70s. We couldn't even bury dead bodies. They were being.
That I mean, I remember that. I mean, we were both young then, but it was so severe that it left that indelible mark on our life. When you couldn't get your water to your house because so you had a tap at the end of the road, and you just have to go and fill up a bucket. Absolutely insane. I mean, that was in my lifetime and your lifetime. Now the young people that are coming up now, and particularly these ones who seem to think that the left is a good idea, well, it's like a failure to launch. You know what they say is if you're not a socialist by the time you're 20, you've got no heart, and if you're not a Tory by the time you're 30, you've got no brain. And I think that that'll upset the Labourites, but if the Tory government was doing the same thing, I'd be criticising them equally. And let's not forget that what we've just had was a Tory government that was only a Tory government in name. They were actually as left as they come. And it's my concern is that we're heading down the left path. And the problem is that when you head down the left path, then you get the far right rise. And that's the worry is what are we going to get next? How extreme will it be? What will come out of that? And I think that's the worry that most people have if they understand anything at all about culture, horseshoe theory, and the history of how human beings react to this kind of cultural situation. Labour aren't the solution by any stretch of the imagination. They are the problem. And right now, the Tories are the problem too. Doesn't leave us with much, does it?
It doesn't, but I think that's a great place to end because we can have this conversation again in a couple of months and see where we are then, and let's see if Labour are doing worse or I mean I actually want Labour to surprise me. I want Labour to do okay because they're my government and they're running my country. Only a fool wishes for their government to fail. I don't want them to fail. And even if they're only slightly better, well, that's better than being slightly worse, isn't it? So I hope they do well.
But it is the trouble is I said this to somebody the other day, and they accused me of the politics of desperation, which I think is a very good way of looking at it. It's like I mean I get really annoyed with the movement, the GC, the gender critical movement, and the movement against critical social justice, which is the stuff the warrior teachers are worried about. And it's I get really angry when I watch people, and it's like they're taking scraps off the table. It's like, oh, I'm so grateful that they've done. Don't stop it. They work for us. You know, they work for us, and I think that these what I would say is a kind of an out of touch middle class, because they are the elites, the out of touch elites. Really need to remember who it is that they work for, because right now they don't think they work for us in Labour. They think they work for Europe, and that's the biggest problem of all.
It is. So I will chat to you again, Barry. For people watching, go into the description of the video, check out Barry's online courses. They're absolutely fantastic. And Barry, I'll catch up with you again soon.
Good to see you, Nick. Thanks very much.
Bye bye.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers, I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.